Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our public kickoff meeting for the North Capitol Street corridor study. We will go ahead and get started. My name is Ted Van Houten. I am a transportation planner with the District Department of Transportation, and I will also be managing this project for DDOT. Let me go ahead and make this full screen. So we are here today to do the virtual public meeting for North Capitol Street. We had our in-person meeting on Saturday. Hopefully, some of you who are on the meeting today were at that, but if not, we'll give you all the information that we shared at that meeting. We'll run through our presentation today. So our agenda, well, first off, we want to make sure that everyone is aware of WebEx and how this works so that you are able to participate and have everything you need. We want to make sure that everyone is aware that this is an open meeting, and as required by DC code, the meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be made available to the public. The video file will be shared on DDOT's YouTube page. We are also live streaming this to DDOT's Facebook page. If you don't wish to have your voice recorded, please do not ask to speak. You can enter questions and comments into the Q&A, which we will review. And if you need technical support during the meeting, you can call 202-997-8354. So using audio and video on WebEx, everyone is on mute. You can't unmute yourself, and we're happy to unmute you during the Q&A and comment period. So to do that, you just need to use the raise hand feature. There are also closed captions available if you would like to use those. To get to them, you either click on the CC icon or the three-dot icon and scroll down, and you'll see closed caption. Your video camera is off, and you won't be able to share video. So to raise your hand, you click the raise hand icon. That lets us know that you would like to speak, and then when we get to question and answer, you'll be in the queue for that. If you have joined during via a browser or a mobile app or by phone, you can click the three-dot icon and select raise hand, and then if you dialed in by phone, you select *3 to use raise hand. We have a question and answer feature, so if you would like to submit a question, and we'll be answering them both in the question and answer period and also throughout the providing text responses throughout the meeting. So you just open that up, three-dot icon will get you to Q&A, and then you put an ask, and you ask all panelists, and that will go to not just me, but other DDOT folks and consultant team that are on the call. And again, if you want to ask a question by phone, dial *3 to use a raise hand, and we'll put you in the queue. We also have a chat feature, and that's another way for you to provide your comments. That is only available for people with WebEx, so if you're calling in by phone, you can't use the chat, but there are other options available to you. Okay, so thanks for bearing with that technical stuff, but our meeting agenda for today will be introducing the project. We'll be going through existing conditions. We'll be giving you kind of an overview of what's included in the project. We had some activities at our meeting on Saturday, and those are available to you as well if you'd like to participate in those today, and we'll go through those. And then we'll go into the question and answer session. So to introduce phase 2 of this project, we are focusing on North Capitol Street between Massachusetts Avenue and Michigan Avenue. We will be looking at the transportation network, And we have 4 primary goals for this project, which are to advance multimodal transportation improvements, to enhance neighborhood connectivity, improve pedestrian infrastructure, and then ensure safety for all roadway users, regardless of how you get around. We'll be building upon what we've done at phase one, and we'll give you an overview of a reminder of phase one later in the presentation. Um, but one big thing is phase one included an evaluation of um, the feasibility of a deck over or looking at a park area over between T Street and Rhode Island Avenue and looking at that would um, what that would entail to deck over that and build a park over that. Um, we also looked at other grade changes as part of phase one. And as part of phase two, um, to both of those are kind of long-term, very high ticket um, things for the corridor. So with this phase, we want to focus on things that we can do um, a little on the faster side that will improve multimodal transportation options and improve safety without precluding a deck over or other grade changes. Kind of in phase one, we kind of have everything we need about those kind of big options. Um, and we want to kind of focus on, what other things can we do in the interim um, to improve safety and multimodal transportation. Um, we also are kind of dividing the corridor up into a number of sections, and this is kind of based on kind of existing conditions. Um, this will help us, as the conditions change, we may come up with some concepts for some different sections of the corridor, keeping in mind the whole corridor. So looking at crash data for North Capitol Street, North Capitol Street is identified as a Tier 1 corridor in Vision Zero, and that represents the highest priority segments in the district. And really, it's essential to prioritize safety on these corridors. So that's going to be a big part of this project. We'll be looking at specific risk factors for crashes and what we can do in the concepts to improve safety on the corridor. And this is a map of the crash data over the last 5 years with a heat map showing kind of higher density and some lower density areas. We'll also be looking at land use, which of course informs transportation. Kind of in general, the northern part of the corridor is more residential, and then as you go south, you get more commercial and larger residential buildings as you continue to go south. So that context will be important as we advance concepts. Traffic delay. These maps represent level of service traffic delay, both in the AM on the left and the PM on the right. So we'll be looking at traffic delays for vehicles as well as buses and trucks and others. I should also note that we have tools to evaluate this for pedestrians and bicycles. So we'll be including those modes in traffic delay analysis as well. Some of those tools are kind of a little kind of in development, but as they come on, we'll be pulling that in to our existing conditions analysis as well and our concept development. The transportation network. So North Capitol Street is a key transportation link. In Move DC, which is the district's multimodal long-range plan, it's North Capitol Street is designated as a transit and freight corridor, and it's not North Capitol itself is not a bicycle priority corridor, but there are a number of intersections with other streets that are bicycle priority corridors. So for this project, kind of the main thing that we'll be looking at for bicycles specifically is those east-west connections. What can we do to make those safer? The plans will be keeping every mode of travel into account. I should also note that Metro is launching their new bus network in just at the end of this month, and our concepts will also be taking that into account as well. Pedestrian network, in general, North Capitol Street has kind of a mostly complete pedestrian network. There are continuous sidewalks and crosswalks at most intersections. Um, I think we certainly recognize that there are a lot of substandard sidewalks, a lot of very narrow and uneven sidewalks. So that is a key thing that we'll be looking at as part of this project. We'll also be guided by the North Capitol Streetscape Guidelines, which were developed several years ago by DDOT and the Office of Planning. And that will be a key reference for this project, and we'll share a link to those guidelines on our website for the project. But we want to show you kind of what that looks like. But that's a historical document that we'll be using. So to give you an overview of phase one and what that covered, that was a feasibility study of North Capitol Street, covering both North Capitol Street. It covered more of North Capitol Street than this phase does. Phase one went all the way to Missouri Avenue and Riggs Road. And for this project, we're just doing Massachusetts to Michigan. There's a number of reasons for that. Safety, the crash the crash prevalence is higher on the southern, and some other kind of modal changes. That also looked at Lincoln Road, and there's a separate Lincoln Road project that is ongoing, which we have more information on. But the kind of key tasks for phase one were to look at a comprehensive safety evaluation. As I mentioned, the feasibility of decking over the North Capitol Street underpass at Rhode Island, re-envisioning the street by producing some high-level cross-sections, and then also developing kind of quick build and tactical improvements. And those are currently out for review in a notice of intent. If you go to DDOT's notice of intent page, that is the ID number for the notice of intent for the quick build improvements from phase one. And then the main priorities we heard from the community from phase one were safe pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure, traffic safety, pedestrian priority, really were the top three. So moving to the timeline for this project, we are currently here. We have spent the last couple of months developing existing conditions and going through and preparing for this meeting. After this meeting, we will complete our existing conditions analysis, and we'll begin to develop alternatives. And then we'll come back to the community with a second public meeting where we will share draft alternatives. We're looking at probably early 2026 for that meeting, and then we'll share those concepts with the community. They'll be out for the community to review and provide comments on. And then we'll do some additional analysis, take into account what we hear from the community, and then come back possibly spring of 2026 with final concepts. Another thing that's coming up, and this is the next opportunity for participation from the public with this project, is we are doing road safety audits, or RSAs. And a road safety audit is a federal program that DDOT does on kind of all of our kind of major corridor projects, using a safe systems approach, looking at safe people, safe vehicles, safe streets, post-crash, with a variety of district government agencies, so not just DDOT, and not just focusing on things that we'll cover in this project specifically. So it's a completely separate project, a completely separate project team, but we will be doing one as part of this project. And what we do is we walk probably because of the length of our project area, we'll be doing it over 2 days. We'll be doing one in AM rush hour period, and then the other in a PM rush hour period. Um, and we'll be walking the corridor with, again, people from DDOT, people from MTD, Public Works, a number of DPR. We invite a number of district government agencies to participate in this, and we also invite the public. So we'll be sharing the dates of that. If that's something that you would like to participate in, please let us know, and we will make sure that you are added to the invite when that goes out. And then after that happens, the team that is managing the road safety audit process will produce a report that will be publicly available that comes up with everything that they heard on the RSA walk, and then there will be a response for every single thing that comes up. And we're looking to do that. I would say probably it hasn't been scheduled yet, but we're looking at possibly sometime in July. So put that on your radar, and if that's something that you want to participate in, let us know. We'd love to have you. We'll also be doing an environmental process, and I apologize if this is kind of a busy slide, but the environmental process kind of has specific language that we want to make sure is out there. But that's another task we'll be doing as part of this project is establishing goals, looking at environmental inventory, developing a report, looking at all the potential impacts of the project, and then taking into account any potential impacts to historic and cultural assets. So that's another task that we'll be doing as part of this project, and that will also be publicly available, and we'll go into our analysis and our work. We'll also be shaped by public input, what we hear today, what we heard at the meeting on Saturday, what we hear at future engagement events. And we're also doing a public space, public life study. And I wanted to turn it over to Lily from our consultant team to talk through the public space, public life study, and then also introduce the activities that we did at the in-person public meeting that you're also welcome to participate in today. So Lily, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Ted. Good evening, everyone. Yes, so one of the things that we're doing as part of this project is really trying to understand how the corridor functions today. So this study called Public Space, Public Life is a survey that we conduct to understand things like who is moving through the corridor today. So for this, we go out there and we observe and track the volume of people moving on foot or assisted, bike, or other micromobility modes. And we also track perceived age and gender, and this gives us a pretty full picture of who is actually moving along the corridor. We also track information around who is spending time along the corridor, where are they spending time, and how are they spending their time on the corridor. So for this, again, we collect perceived age, gender, posture, and the different activities that people are engaged in. And on top of data collection and trying to understand this quantitative data, we look at the overall quality of the spaces. So we do a general quality assessment of the corridor itself, specifically looking at, if people are spending time in a certain area, how is that area and space accommodating their needs. So a lot of this is actually helping us understand the current conditions of the corridor, but also trying to understand what people need to be able to achieve on this corridor and what their needs are. So we'll be conducting and finalizing this data collection and developing it into insights that will inform the design process.
Great, thanks. I'm going to go through, could you go through the activities as well?
Oh, sure,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay, cool, thanks.
Sure. So on Saturday, we conducted a really successful engagement through a few different activities. So one of the activities is about understanding, we're calling it Your North Capitol. We asked people, what is your relationship to North Capitol Street? So we want to understand, do you live in the area? Do you work or learn in the area? Or do you come here for recreation? And specifically understanding where these locations are. We also asked about what people really love about this corridor. We understand there are challenges, but we also want to understand the qualities that people love about this particular corridor. So we asked a lot about that and had some great input. And we want to just continue asking this question to this group as well, so we can continue gathering input as much as we can. The next activity we did was around just generally understanding how people get around the corridor, or like generally. So we had these options. Do you walk? Do you bike using your personal or shared micromobility? Are you assisted? Do you use the bus, ride share, drive, or carpool? So these are the options that we presented, and people voted for all the modes that applied to them. And this helps us understand how people actually navigate the city. And then the final activity was really understanding or teasing out people's aspirations for North Capitol Street. If, what's your vision as a resident in the area? What's your vision for the corridor? So kind of a very aspirational moment for people to provide their input and just share their thoughts with us. And we've created a Mira board. This is the link that you see here. But it's all of these activities have been laid out very clearly with instructions in this space. So please go to this link, and at your own time, please provide us with your input. And I believe it will be open for 1 week. So you have some time after this meeting as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Lily. Yeah, so we're going to get into question and answers in just a bit, but we did want to kind of think about some of the comments that or things that you may have on your mind, and kind of give you an answer before you have to ask the question. We do have a full document of these that we'll be posting on the website. So for future reference, but some of the questions that we've already kind of heard, both on Saturday and before from the public. There we are. So we've heard a lot, again, we've heard a lot about the deck over and bringing the full roadway up to grade. And, we heard a lot, and that was kind of a lot of comments that we got in phase 1 of the project. And, I think phase 1 did analysis for both of those options, and kind of advanced some thought about it. And those are really they're both very expensive options, and as far as long-term projects, they're like really long-term projects. So I think for this project, we want to say that, yes, we've done that analysis. We have it. We don't want to do anything we don't want to propose anything as part of this project that would preclude doing either of those things. But I think we want to kind of see what other options are there, as opposed to just, deck over versus bringing everything up to grade. I think we'd like to focus on things that can be implemented quicker and with a smaller budget. And we've presented the crash data. We know that there are especially sidewalks are substandard in a lot of locations. So we want to be able to advance options that could be implemented in a shorter time frame, and that's that's not something that we're not going to be able to fix all the sidewalks in a year, but kind of maybe in the medium term. It's hard to say, because we don't have options yet, so we don't know We don't have alternatives yet, so we don't know exactly how long they would take. But in general, we are looking at what we can do in a slightly shorter time frame than a deck over or bringing everything up to grade. So as far as prioritizing pedestrian safety, again, we know that the sidewalks in a lot of locations are substandard. And that's a major aspect of this project, is identifying the opportunities to improve the pedestrian environment. And we'll also be looking at intersections to determine which of those intersections are kind of the real, pain points for pedestrian safety, and where can we really make improvements to those. The bicycle network, as we mentioned, North Capitol Street is not designated as a bicycle priority corridor in Move DC. We are leading the strategic bikeways plan, which is a district-wide effort to look at the network. For this project specifically, we will be looking probably the biggest thing that we can deliver for the bicycle network in this project specifically is looking at those east-west connections and how we can improve those. And then as far as phase 1 versus phase 2, phase 1 looked at the feasibility study. I mentioned the deck over, the quick build improvements, again, which the notice of intent is out now. And as in phase 2, we'll be continuing the work of phase 1, looking at concept alternatives, advancing transportation safety, looking at neighbor connectivity, pedestrian safety, as well as for all users. So with that, we will go ahead and open it up to questions from attendees. And if you ask a question, if you're able to introduce yourself, we'd appreciate that. So Ryan, if you could kind of go through and see who's able to, who has the first question.
Sure. Yep. I thank you, Ted, and thank you for the questions that have already been happening in the chat. I think we've been asking or answering them as best we can, and certainly feel free to follow up again if you want to come back either in the chat or live with us. I see two people. So first that I saw was Huma. If you want to begin your question.
Can we unmute Huma?
Huma, it looks like Commissioner MTS, it looks like you're unmuted, or we're unmuted. I think if you press the unmute button, we'll get a response. There it is. We can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks.
There we are.
Thank you. I'm a commissioner in ANC 5E. I've been following this obviously since 2023 and even before. I have two questions. One is, we received an NOI recently with proposed pedestrian intersection changes. Does that mean, based on the timeline that was presented today, that those won't even go into effect until 2026? Okay, so that's still, those pedestrian improvements are still going to go into place earlier.
So those are the pedestrian improvements in phase 1. And so those were already reviewed by the community, and we got concepts, and those, the notice of intent is, the kind of the final check with the community before we implement. So that is currently out now for 8 intersections along the corridor. And the comment period for that closes next month. And I think we anticipate putting those in later this year. So if that changes, we'll let you know. But that is kind of different from the timelines that we share today. The timelines that we share today are for the current project, the phase 2. The notice of intent, our goal is to, again, we anticipate getting them in by the end of the year.
Got it. And my second question was just about pedestrians. I think you alluded at the beginning that while it has a continuous pedestrian corridor, DDOT recognizes that these conditions are not ideal, which would be which is putting it mildly. In many of those sections, they're not ADA accessible. ANC 5E passed a resolution earlier this year, also asking DDOT to look at pedestrian light timings. Right now, they're really configured for cars. Vehicles, especially during rush hour, to get in and out of North Cap as quickly as possible, which means that pedestrians are left with about 15 seconds to cross 6, 7 to 8 lanes of traffic in the morning. And that's especially at intersections where multiple children are going to school, given the proximity of Langley, a charter school, and then McKinley Tech. So I just wanted to add in that as you're looking at phase 2, I would really look at how pedestrians are actually being able to access those intersections where you're making these improvements. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I think that's definitely going to be part of this project. We will, I know we've already kind of looked at ANC websites to see the resolutions. But if there's any resolution that you want to make sure that we're aware of, if you want to shoot me an email with that so that we can make sure that we're including that as part of our inputs.
Next up is Camelia Sanford.
Hello?
Camelia, I don't see your hand up anymore. If you'd like to unmute, you can do so. Okay. Could somebody unmute Camelia? She put her hand down, but I think still would like to. There we go. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Camelia Sanford, and I am a Bloomingdale resident. And please forgive me if you've already covered this. I joined the meeting late. But are there plans to put a left turn signal going north on North Capitol at North Capitol and Michigan, a left turn signal from North Capitol on to Michigan to give access to the hospitals and all things, what would that be, going west? Currently, the traffic, the last left turn opportunity, last left turn signal is on Channing Street. Channing Street was not built to absorb the amount of traffic there is going to the hospital centers, the hospital center and those other hospitals during the morning and the afternoon rush hours.
Yeah. Thanks for that comment. I think that's something that we can, one of the things we're looking at as part of this project are ways that traffic can move more efficiently. Of course, we want to make sure that traffic is moving safely as well as efficiently. But that's something that we'll be looking at throughout this project. I think we can also check with our teams that manage signals to see if there's something that can happen faster than our project. But those types of things are what we want to hear for this project are intersections where there are issues just like that. We want to take all of the comments and all the experiences of the people that live along the corridor and make sure that is informing our analysis and our concept development. So thank you for that comment.
And I would note that there was an almost identical comment, almost at the exact same moment that this was verbalized. So
There we go.
2 for 1 there.
Yep.
Certainly issue noted. Thank you for raising it. Next in the queue is Chris L. Go ahead, Chris.
Hear me?
Yes.
Hi, longtime resident here of North Capitol Street at New York Avenue. I know that there's been a lot of great studies done over the years. The North Capitol Needs Assessment that NOMA did, I think with DDOT a few years back. Several other studies prior to that. not to mention the Irving Street Cloverleaf study that's, I think, been done before. How is DDOT for this phase leveraging the recommendations from those previous studies? It seems like the community has put a lot of time over the years providing recommendations and feedbacks, and it just kind of seems like maybe this is another iteration. So are we leveraging what's been done before to help speed up this process? Thank you.
Yeah, we're looking at all the previous projects, the ones you mentioned as well as others, um, that have been done to inform this project. We still want to make sure we're doing um, community outreach. So, we can't just take old projects and be like, oh, this is what we heard from the community, or we're going to move forward. We do want to make sure that we are re-engaging. Things change, new developments come on. So, I think I certainly recognize that it may seem like we are, coming out with, uh, we're not coming to you with a clean slate. We do have, the previous phase of this project and other projects that that will inform our concept development as well.
Next in the queue is Nick.
I totally hear that budget funding availability is the reason the more capital intensive options of either deck over or at grade aren't being considered. Can you share what the relative cost estimates were for each of those two options from phase one?
I don't have that off the top of my head. I know for the deck over, there were 3 cost estimates that we did. And there was a variety of treatments. Basically for doing the deck over, you're essentially building a tunnel. So to do that, there are certain guidelines that need to be done as far as ventilation and fire safety and all this type of stuff. And to fully cover it needs more ventilation and more costs versus having an opening in the park to allow that. So there were 3 kind of versions based on, a larger hole, a smaller hole, and then, a full park over that block. And it was, we got the cost to do it, and we basically have a lot of good information as far as moving forward on if we were to move forward with either deck over or bringing everything up to grade. We have a lot of information from phase one. I think with this phase, we don't want to focus. We've already kind of done the work with that we need for now. So instead, we want to focus on other things like how can we improve pedestrian safety? How can we improve, North Capitol Street is a transit priority corridor and a freight priority corridor in Move DC for the district. So what we want to focus on for this project is, the pedestrian safety, of course, but, the transit network, how can we advance that? How can we improve transit improve transit service on the corridor? How can we improve conditions for freight to make that more efficient and safer? So I think that's the main focus of this project. Like all those other things, the deck over and the bringing everything up to grade, those are big ticket items, and we kind of have all the analysis we need. And I think if we focus on all those, there's other opportunities that that we'd miss, and we want to make sure that we're not missing them in this project. So that's kind of the point of this project, is to focus on those multimodal improvements.
Yeah, totally aligned. I'm glad to see you guys are moving with stuff that can be done quickly to make this safer. Transit improvements, huge. I just trying to get the public data that came out of that study. A lot of
Yeah.
folks, put a lot into it. Sounds like it looks like Megan put a link in that has the costs on the deck over. Does it have the costs on the at grade option as well in that study?
I think we have, yeah. All the stuff from phase one is on our website, and that's linked, so you can look that up.
Cool. Yeah, I found the 44 to 82 million on the deck over range. I'll see if I can find the acc rate in there.
Yeah, we may need to circle back with you, because I don't know if that is included in the document that is posted on the website. So, you know, we can make sure that that information is provided and circle back.
Great. I can follow up with you then, Megan.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Those questions, Nick. Next in the queue, Aaron Fairbanks. Take your time. She said just a sec in the chat. Aaron, how about we go to Sharon just for a minute, and we'll circle back to you next. Hopefully that's okay with you, and we'll come up. So Sharon, if you are available, you can go ahead. Go ahead. Sharon, you're unmuted if you want to speak. Right now, we're not hearing you. Give it one more shot. Not currently hearing you. Sorry about that, Sharon. And Aaron has come back. Why don't we give you a shot, Aaron? Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank God. I seem to be having an echo here too. This is really annoying. I'm new to WebEx.
We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, so I don't have an echo for you.
Nope.
Okay, this is so annoying. Okay, I live on North Capitol Street. I've lived here for over 20 years. My husband and I are extremely invested in what happens here. I'm sorry, this echo is really throwing me off. So I'm fully confused as to why this deck over option is not being pursued. I'm sorry if I sound ignorant. I missed part of the presentation, but I went to the phase 1 meeting, and it seemed to be clear to me what the community really wanted was consistent what I wanted, a deck over option. I feel like the deck over option takes care of a lot of the public safety needs, as well as improves sidewalks and transit and accommodates the how it freight. It's very important to have a main artery for importing stuff on the highway. Am I making myself clear?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I feel like deck over option encompasses all the things that we need, as well as improves the overall quality of life for our communities surrounding North Capitol, and improves a sense of community for all of us. And I feel like I worry that you've thrown out the option of deck over, or at least it sounds that way. And I don't think it should be thrown out.
Yeah, thanks for that. So we heard a number of comments from the community about the deck over. We certainly heard some people that said exactly what you said. I think we also heard some people that that were supportive of bringing the roadway fully up to grade. You know, I think we heard the phrase community boulevard from some members of the public. I think another thing that we heard about the deck over is for people who didn't live super close to the deck over, I think we heard from them is, the deck over, whether or not you do it, isn't going to change anything for me. And there are a lot of issues on my street and on my block, and the deck over won't do anything to benefit me. So I think we haven't discarded the deck over. We've kind of we've done the analysis and the feasibility, and we have the cost estimates, and we're kind of setting it aside at the moment because it's such a expensive option, and it's something that a lot of people supported, and then we also heard some opposition to it. So I think for this project, I think we want to recognize that there are a variety of thoughts in the community about the deck over. Um, all very passionate, but also very different. But I think what we want to say in this phase is, okay, we recognize that, we hear all that. Let's set that options aside, not away, but aside. So that, set those aside and think about what other things in the corridor we could do on a shorter time frame while something like that, whether it's a deck over or whether it is, yeah, and I hear you, aim high, true. But, I think we also want to, I think, improving things for pedestrians, improving things for buses, improving things for freight. Those are all going to take significant trade-offs as well. And I think all of those things are, if we expanded all the sidewalks on North Capitol Street, I would argue that's just as a large goal as doing a deck over or bringing everything up to grade. I think whatever we propose as part of this project is not going to, we want to make sure that anything we propose in this project will not preclude a deck over, will not preclude bringing everything up to grade. So if either of those two options are chosen, and I hear you, the deck over does include wider sidewalks, but again, only for that block. And we're thinking about the whole corridor. So yeah, and so I think there's a number of things, we talked a lot about the deck over and the community boulevard in phase one, and I'm sure we'll continue to hear it from the project, from the public. But I think if this project is just a debate about deck over versus community boulevard, we'll be missing a lot of other opportunities of things we could do on a shorter time frame that would improve safety and improve conditions on North Capitol Street. So.
And Ted, I think you gave a lot of good information there, and I just wanted to join in and apologize. I didn't introduce myself earlier. I'm Megan Kennedy. I'm the Associate Director for the Capital Planning Division, which is a team at DDOT that's kind of formed in the last several months. It includes Ted's team, the Capital Corridors branch, as well as bus priority and bikeways. So folks looking at corridors basically for planning. And, I think, unfortunately, there isn't the funding available currently to be advancing the deck over. And so I think we just want to be realistic about making sure we can, bring some improvements, as Ted mentioned, on a quicker timeline. But, we're in the midst of a budget formulation process right now. It's always budget season, right? And so right now where we're at, as I'm sure many of you are familiar, is the mayor's proposed budget has been released and council is now doing their work to mark it up and determine what's going to come out in terms of the final budget. So, at this point, like the direction we've gotten is to, focus on moving things forward in a way that we can do given, kind of where the district's budget is at this point. Trying not to preclude anything that would be grander or, a bigger vision for the future. But, if things change in terms of the budget and the direction, then we'll adjust. But at this point, this is where we're at, and we want to make sure we're still bringing much needed safety and pedestrian improvements to this whole corridor. So I just want to be kind of realistic about where we're at this point.
Thanks, Megan. And I did want to reiterate because, I know we've gotten comments. I've also got an email about the two options of the deck over and the option of bringing everything up to grade. Neither option has been rejected. We just, as part of this phase, we're not going to be doing any work to advance either of those options. But both are still possible. Anything we propose as part of this project will not preclude either from moving forward. But the focus of this phase is a little different.
Thank you, Ted and Megan. We will go back to Sharon. Go ahead.
Hi there. Hi there. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Excellent. Thank you. I had asked this question in the chat, and I just want a little bit more of an elaboration on this. I'm newer to the conversation, and so I just want to better understand when you think about multimodal goals, are you currently measuring what those improvement targets look like? Like, how do you think about what those improvements actually look like? And more specifically, the role of these goals in, making our roads ADA compliant, and, enhancing accessibility. I just want to better understand your position on those.
Yeah, I think we would look at existing conditions and all of the modes of travel of how people get around, and determine ways of proposing improvements that would address those issues. And then where there are trade-offs between those, we would manage them. We're not going to be able to do 100% of everything for everybody, but certainly the sidewalk condition. We heard a lot about sidewalks in our meeting on Saturday, and also in previous engagement from phase one and other things. We'll be looking at district-wide guidance documents like Move DC to see what the modal priorities are for North Capitol Street, and then determining ways of improving those. We'll be getting comments from the public, like the comment we got earlier about North Capitol in Michigan, and seeing what we can do along the corridor to make improvements as far as that goes. So there's a lot of inputs that we'll be getting, that we've already gotten and will continue to get, that we'll be putting it all together to come up with some draft alternatives that we'll be sharing at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. And just a clarifying question on the ADA compliance piece, I want to better understand, is that a stated goal to improve that across all of these options? Or, I'm trying to understand, how do you make those trade-offs if something isn't ADA compliant today?
Yeah, we have the North Capitol Streetscape guidelines that we'll be using, and that laid out. If you haven't taken a look at that document, I'd recommend looking at that. But that laid out, dimensions for North Capitol Street as far as sidewalks and public space and trees and everything. So that's an important input that we'll be using for this project. But yeah, like I said, we've heard a lot about the substandard sidewalks. We know that's a major issue for this corridor.
Thank you very much.
And Ted, I just wanted to add, there's also, as part of Move DC, the district's developing the multimodal measure of effectiveness tool, which I think you mentioned was kind of in development. And so that's one of the things we'll be using to kind of compare across the options. And so there's very quantitative, specific criteria for each mode, and depending on what the priorities are along the corridor. That's a tool we'll be using. And it's not, the only thing we're considering at all, but it is helpful to kind of, because there probably are going to be some tough decisions to be made. We know that, we aren't, widening the roadway. So we're working with the space that we have, and we know there's a lot of like constraints and challenges with the different grades and some of those very large, beautiful trees and the sidewalks. And so we'll, that's one tool we have, but we'll try to take a very kind of like holistic and comprehensive look at those things, and then be able to share that all with you at the next public meeting so that you can, weigh in and let us know, if you agree or have other thoughts of things we should be considering in the scoring and decision making.
Thank you for your question and questions, Sharon. Thank you. And I also just want to note for folks that are putting questions in the chat, thank you for that, as well as the ongoing dialogue and even answering each other's questions. We will aim to answer all of the questions. So if your question has not yet been answered yet, be patient, we will get to it. And again, thank you for putting those there. In terms of verbal questions, next in the queue is Chris L.
Hi, so appreciate the discussion around deck over versus at grade. I understand that's a huge capital project, right? And cobbling funding together for something of that magnitude typically takes several years. So understand the points made there. I know there's the NOI currently out for all of the changes, the quick build changes along North Capitol currently, and I've reviewed some of that. So I guess I'm not understanding what exactly is considered in scope for this project that we're currently discussing in terms of the size of the budget for the project. Are we talking curb relocations, or is this more quick build? Is it turning the quick build into permanent infrastructure? I'm not really clear on what's within scope for this project.
Yeah, I think what's in scope for this project is, phase one already looked at all the quick build. So I think for the most part, we've gotten everything from phase one, and that was already taken care of, and those improvements are out in the notice intent that's out now. The large transformational projects for the corridor, really the largest of the large, in this case, the deck over and bringing everything up to grade. Those are things that, again, we have all the information that we need as far as at this point what we would need as far as cost estimates and analysis. So we're not going to be advancing either of those as part of this project. So I would say what's in scope is kind of everything else in the middle. Coming up with concept plans that that consider wider sidewalks, that consider improvements for transit, and that's not way there's a lot of things in our transit toolbox than just bus lanes. So it's not going to be a conversation of bus lanes versus not bus lanes. There could be, transit signal priority and a number of things that we can do to improve transit service, even if we don't add bus lanes to the corridor. Looking at ways to improve freight, whether that's loading zones or other things in the freight toolbox to improve that. Looking at the east-west bike connections. So there's a number of things that we'll be considering as far as improvements. So I would say kind of the two things on the either end of the spectrum are not included in this phase, but like and anything else is. So.
Great, thanks, Ted. One question that was noted in the chat that I think is worth saying out loud for everybody. Brianna asked about the northern section and if there would be study there. If you could share that FAQ.
Yeah, no, thanks for bringing that up. So phase one included North Capitol Street from Massachusetts Avenue as the southern terminus to Missouri Riggs at the northern terminus. And this project is a smaller project area with the northern terminus at Michigan. There's a number of reasons why the northern section of North Capitol Street, so North Capitol Street between Michigan and Missouri Riggs, was included in phase one is not included in this project. And there are a number of reasons for that. One, the condition of the land use really changes once you pass Michigan Avenue. You have a lot of major kind of institutional uses that are really focused away from North Capitol Street. So the condition North Capitol Street really changes once you get north of Michigan. The sidewalk network breaks down. There are sections of North Capitol Street north of Michigan that do not have sidewalks. The bus network, the buses at Michigan turn off of North Capitol. So north of Michigan, there isn't bus service on North Capitol Street. And then the crash data, the crashes are much more concentrated, or there's a higher concentration of crashes south of Michigan as opposed to north of Michigan. So in general, Michigan Avenue was kind of a natural point to truncate the project and to really focus on the multimodal section of North Capitol Street. That's not to say that the northern portion is not important. We do want to do another project that would look at that that corridor specifically, but because of the number of changes that take place at Michigan Avenue, we chose to truncate this project and advance this phase, which focuses on the southern half.
Thank you, Ted. And next in the queue is Rick.
I just want to start off by saying thank you guys for taking the time and having this conversation. I think it's really important, and for me, I definitely appreciate that the discussion's being had. I had a question about kind of I guess the approach you all are taking in terms of balance. So I know that North Capitol Street is a priority street in terms of freight and just general commuting. So from a car perspective, trucks and that nature, very important. But it's also pretty important for pedestrians, and I think in time could be even more important for pedestrians if we were able to get some of the issues under control. So I wonder how you all are going to square the need to make improvements to the corridor for pedestrians while still making sure that the goal of keeping it a high priority network for freight and cars, that stays intact. And I'll give kind of an example that I can think of where the two might conflict. So at the intersection of North Capitol and Florida, there's a slip lane that, drivers going southbound on North Capitol can make it kind of a unimpeded right turn onto Florida Avenue without slowing down. That would involve them going straight through a crosswalk that pedestrians have to go through if they're crossing Florida Avenue on the west side of North Capitol. It's dangerous, but it is something that I kind of look at and you think that it actually kind of improves traffic patterns for North Capitol, and that you don't have cars waiting at a light before they have to make a right onto Florida Avenue. But the balance is the question there, because I think from a pedestrian perspective, that slip lane should go away. But I just kind of wanted to get your opinion on that in terms of how you all are squaring that conflict.
Yeah, so this is to make sure we're talking about the same one. This is if you are southbound on North Capitol Street and you want to make the right turn onto Florida.
Correct.
Okay, yeah. So that slip lane, or that is needed for larger vehicles or trucks to make that turn from North Capitol Street to Florida. If that were to be closed, trucks wouldn't be able to make that right turn because it's at an angle. So I think that's an example of a trade-off that in order to close that slip lane, there would need to be a redesign of that intersection, and I believe that there is some National Park Service land, so that's an additional process. So that's a good example of a number of trade-offs. That's not to say that we wouldn't not do anything as part of this project, but that's a key location where there's a number of things that we would have to take into consideration before we propose anything at that location.
Okay,
But
and so
we do hear a lot about that slip lane.
yeah, and that brings me into, I guess, like a part B of my question. So I think there's probably a similar trade-off if you go a little bit further north on North Capitol Street on that same side. So where the underpass starts and you start to have kind of like the side lanes where people can turn onto local streets, the sidewalk there is incredibly narrow. But were you to widen the sidewalk, it would be very difficult for cars to pass through. By the way, I'm asking all of these things as someone who walks North Capitol, and I would put more stock into pedestrian safety than traffic. But I'm just trying to figure out, because I'm curious to know what the end result of this study is truly going to be. And I would hope that it would be, substantive changes, but I worry that some of the choke points are those areas that people have the most concerns about. And yet DDOT might not have the ability to change for various other reasons, right? So for the flow of traffic or for car access. So that's a big concern that I have, considering I've now named two concerns that I have, but there are a few others that I have on the corridor. The underpass obviously being a big one, Florida and North Capitol as an intersection as a whole being a big one, and then the underpass under New York Avenue being another. But it's hard for me to imagine that those areas are going to be updated without serious change, and that kind of is driving the concern that I have that kind of these smaller nominal changes along the corridor will be stopgaps that at the end of the day don't really improve the corridor in any meaningful way. And I just, as a side, I think that's why I'm sure you've already said it. You've heard a lot about the deck over because people want that meaningful change, and I feel like we're not getting it, at least in what I've seen from study number 1, 2, and some of the previous studies that have been done on the corridor.
Okay. Well, we haven't developed any concepts yet. We'll be working on that, but there are a lot of trade-offs that we will need to be making and considering. There's a lot of North Capitol is a busy roadway, and there's a lot of things that we need to be taking into account. So thank you for that comment.
Yes, thank you, Rick. The Eckington Veterans Foundation asked to speak, and so they're not in the queue, but I made a request. Go ahead. You should be unmuted now.
Hello, Ryan. Hello, Ted. I echo Rick's gratitude to both of you. This is Leah Min of the Eckington Veterans Foundation. I am the custodian. Could you please turn my camera on if possible? I want you guys to...
We can't unfortunately share video at this meeting.
Okay, well then, neighbors, you know me. I'm the Asian lady with the dog, the little dachshund. I am not only the custodian of the Eckington Veterans Foundation, I am also an attorney by trade, an environmental attorney of 20 years. And before that, I am a city planner from Haverford College, where I have a bachelor's degree in growth and structure of cities. I offer my support and assistance personally as Leah Min, attorney, city planner, right? And I offer my support and assistance as Leah Min, the custodian of the Eckington Veterans Foundation. We are a community stakeholder organization with headquarters at 1843 North Capitol Street Northeast. It's North Capitol and T. So we're on the southeast corner across like catty corner from St. Martin's. So like we're right on top of bridge number 0049, right? Aaron, you said you and your husband have been here for 20 years. We're up the street probably. Sharon, like we hear your concerns about ADA accessibility. Chris L., I understand that you want to understand the scope. And Rick, you talked about balancing freight versus pedestrians. We aggregate community concerns and promote them from our headquarters at 1843 North Capitol Street. It's one of the historic row homes that was licensed to be built, or what do you call it, permitted, 1901. Our mission is to facilitate veteran to make good choices. The way we do that is we help our veterans transition to serve the country. They've served the country in a military sense before, and so now that they're out, they serve the country by serving their local communities. We partner with local businesses to serve them, right? Our veterans serve the community, and thus we are very interested in matters of transit, matters of freight, and the matters of safety that have been raised by members of this community. So Aaron, Sharon, Chriselle, Rick, please come to our next watch party. I'm at it right now. It's at our headquarters, and drop by and come talk to me, because the Eckington Veterans Foundation is heavily invested in Eckington. Thank you, Ted. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. On to the next commenter, Chris L., I believe again.
Hi, yeah, so, you know, as the corridor has kind of developed, especially kind of on the southern end, it's gotten much more dense and very urban-like, right? Heavy pedestrian traffic and anticipating a lot of growth still. I know the SEC headquarters was planned for North Capitol and New York Avenue. I think that may be on hold, but some other big projects, we've seen a lot of high rises go up along this corridor. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit how you're balancing the needs of a dense pedestrian-oriented kind of neighborhood with North Capitol's historic use, which has mostly been kind of a suburban gateway into and out of the city as we kind of go through this project. Is there an intent to kind of switch the paradigm of North Capitol away from a commuter-oriented roadway into more of a city pedestrian-friendly like road? Thank you.
I mean, I think one of the key goals of this project is to improve safety on North Capitol Street. As far as where the, I think our focus is going to be on making sure that the traffic that does move through North Capitol Street does so as safely as possible, and less kind of focus on where exactly it's coming from. There have been a number of developments along North Capitol Street. There will continue to be developments. So we'll be thinking about that, and that will be an input into our project. Every project that comes through development review process, and if it's large enough, it has it has to mitigate the impacts that may have. So we'll be working with our team that reviews those developments, and if there's any developments that are large enough, we'll make sure that we're aware of them and are putting that into our analysis. So yeah, there's a number of things. Development is one of the other inputs that we'll be putting into this project. So thanks for that comment. Ryan, is there anybody who who'd like to provide a comment or a question that hasn't had the opportunity to do one yet? Do we have anybody from who's joining by phone?
I have not seen anything
Okay.
along those lines. Feel free to somebody to voice themselves if they would like to. I can look at all the attendees again. There is
Yeah.
an unanswered question in the chat. Megan or Ted, one of you could answer Andrew's question about the corridor zoning.
Yeah. Could you read that question?
Yeah, essentially, Andrew is wondering if the consideration of the existing zoning and potential needs for changes, the streetscape guidelines call for more active commercial facades, and some of the corridors doesn't actually allow zoning that would meet that goal. And so wondering whether that's within the scope of this project.
I mean, this project wouldn't be proposing any zoning changes to North Capitol Street. Um, you know, that's more of a comp plan, or that's out of the scope of this project. What will be the reason we mentioned the streetscape guidelines is, you know, it is a document that is specific to North Capitol Street that DDOT and the Office of Planning have looked at as far as you know, guidelines for public space dimensions, and that's, you know, sidewalks, that's tree boxes, that's other features, and that's going to be a guiding document that we're going to be using to inform the concepts, the alternatives that we develop through this project. And we'll post that on the project website so that, I mean, it's already publicly available. If you Google North Capitol Streetscape Guidelines, you should be able to find it, but we'll post it on the project website as well, so that that's a little easier to find.
And Andrew
That will
did
be
post he did post the link within his comment.
oh, okay, great, cool.
For others
So there you go.
to go.
So yeah. Yeah,
There are
I should mention that our
sorry.
meeting, we are on until 8:30, so we're happy to answer questions as long as you all have them. So
There are two call-in users, so I'm gonna
Okay.
unmute those two and see if one of those users would like to speak.
Okay.
Ryan, this is Peyton. Just so everybody knows, if you're calling in, you can press *3 to raise your hand and we can unmute you.
Thank you, Peyton. And there is one call-in user unmuted. Go ahead if you want to speak.
Good evening. I'm India Luckett, Stronghold Community, President of Stronghold Civic Association. I'm basically listening in. A lot of great information that's been shared, and I'm at the border of the 2300 block of North Capitol Street through the 100 block of Michigan Avenue. And so that's about it. I don't have any questions of that, but I do hear the pedestrians' concern. I support that as well. So again, I'm just listening, and thank you for what you're doing and what will come out of this.
Thank you.
Thank you for weighing in. Next up, Aaron, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Hopefully I'm not echoing. No, I'm echoing again. Awesome.
Again, you're clear on our end. I know it's frustrating, but
I know.
Thank you for
All right.
working through it.
So I wanted to reiterate the safety concerns that others have voiced about crossing Capitol Street from the northeastern side, specifically near where the new McMillan development is. It is super perilous. I'd be curious to know what ideas you guys have for making crossing from the northeastern side to the northwestern side to reach stores, because drivers don't care. They're where the camera is, they'll slow down, but then they speed up immediately afterwards. For reference, I live between Adams Street and W on North Capitol, and people drive down that strip going top speeds directly into the tunnel area. It's very dangerous. I wish I had my own speed camera and I would hold people accountable, but I don't have that. What else was I gonna say? just that I would like to know when the next meeting is, as well as to kind of get a feel for whether or not the community is going to have kind of a hand on the decision making that's going to be happening in the future. As a highly invested community member, I worry that yes, we're giving you our feedback right now, but I worry that it's going to be thrown out as soon as you guys get corporate feedback. You're not going to worry about the community feedback. Do you follow me?
Yeah. No, I think the community feedback is really important. We want to make sure that we're getting it, and I would say that it really does, not just this project, but it really does shape projects at DDOT. I have so it's something that we will certainly be taking into account and is crucially important for this project. The next, let me go back to some of these slides to answer your questions. And come on, there we go. Okay, go that way. We need to go the other way. Okay, so project timeline is the next big public meeting like this. We won't be doing until next year, because at that meeting we will be presenting draft plans as far as what the corridor could look like, and that's going to take a lot of time to develop. We're still doing existing condition analysis. We're still going to be getting comments from the public, and we want to kind of take that all in together. As you've heard at this meeting, there's a lot of trade-offs that we're going to need to consider. So it's going to take a while to develop those alternatives. Once we do that, we'll come back to the public. Right now, our timeline is to do that in early 2026. We have a community advisory committee for the project that's made up of all of the ANCs along the corridor of the study area, both in Ward 5 and Ward 6. The Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Councils, the Multimodal Accessibility Advisory Council, the NOMA BID, civic associations, both Eckington and Bloomingdale are on that. And then a number of other groups, North Capitol and Main Street, and other groups are on that group. So we'll be meeting with that group as well. There's a number of events for the community that are coming up. I will say that I'm glad that you asked the question, because the very next thing that the community will be able to participate in for this project is the road safety audit. If this is something that you want to make sure that you're participating in, send me an email. Let me know that you want to participate in this. And what we do is, when we schedule these, we'll add you to the invite, so that you know that they're happening. And those are, again, our walks that we're going to be doing. We're going to be walking the whole corridor. Probably not all in one day. We'll do one half of it one day and the other half another day. We will be scheduling that probably, and we're looking at probably doing that, I would say, in sometime in July. So that's the very next thing that the community, if you want to be involved in this project, that's the very next public-facing function of this project. So that's what's going on there.
And Erin notes that she would very much like to participate in that, Ted, in the chat. And
gotcha.
So,
make sure I have your email address so that I can add you to the invite when we get that. Thank you.
You can email Ted directly in that regard. Thank you for your comments, Erin. And next up are the Grandisons. Go ahead.
Okay, that was a yes. You can hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks for the talking and listening and all of that stuff. And just wanted to get I didn't hear this part, and I have been here the whole time. but just in case, the mid crossway points in the, I would say like north end, but the between Channing and up to Michigan are really, really dangerous if you're not at a light. And thankfully we do have a couple of new lights, but I so happen to live in like one of the busiest corridors, and I think we are the reddest zone on this end, actually right in front of my house, and we see the evidence of it quite often. But it is dangerous, and like having a teenage son and knowing that my neighbors also have teenage, kids, and we want to be able to send them across the street, freely. That is there a plan to put up those things? Forgive me, I don't know what they're called, but the other signage that kind of, if you're not at a light, they will still like be flashing lights that kind of help with cars stopping, because otherwise it's very, very difficult. As you can imagine, North Capitol is 3 lanes on both sides, to get a uniform stop that doesn't feel like, a death wish when you're going across. And so that's question number 1. I'll stop there.
Yeah, thanks for your comment. The McMillan development had a number of pedestrian safety improvements as part of that project that have, recently gone in. I'm not exactly sure if they're done. We can follow up on that. But there are a number of things that will be coming as part of, or that were considered as part of that development. But that's an area that we'll continue to monitor as part of this project. And if what was proposed isn't enough, if there's more that can be done, that's something that we'll be definitely looking at as part of this project.
Ms. Grandison, did you have a follow-up question?
Thank you. I didn't realize I couldn't unmute myself. So yes, I did. And I'm sorry, forgive me if I'm wrong. I didn't actually hear an answer to my question. So does that mean that there has to be specific requests for additional signage and lights when you're at a mid crosswalk point and there is no like light in the intersection? They have repainted the crosswalks, but I mean, let's say you are at Douglas in North Capitol, where there is no light. You just have a crosswalk and do your best getting across there. Are there not plans already in place to put up more signage just because of the magnitude of the intersection that you're crossing?
Yeah, so I think we'd have to follow up and see what what is proposed as far as transportation mitigations for the McMillan development. I know that is a key thing, and they did make some improvements there. So I'd start there, and I apologize for not having all the details on that, but we can follow up and get that. And then after that, if there are still things that you feel like aren't being addressed from the McMillan development, then we can, we'll look at them as part of this project, but we also have a 311 process and a traffic safety investigation process. So, if there are other things as far as, additional signage or, stuff like that, that's another input that we'll be using for this project is all of the traffic safety investigations that we've received or will continue to receive. This project team will download them and include them in our analysis. So I think if you have an acute safety issue like that, I would also encourage you to submit a traffic safety, and this is for you or really anybody from the public that has kind of a really acute safety concern on the corridor. We have the traffic safety investigation process to kind of deal with those on a more timely matter.
Okay. Second question was, obviously anybody who lives within our span of what's being included now is like the McMillan project, but is also just a part of the North Capitol Street corridor, has seen some ramifications to the construction across the street. And so with this new road that is directly across, there's a couple of them, but Gatehouse is what I'm thinking about specifically, as it is the one that goes from North Capitol Street over to First Street fully as a thoroughfare. Is that road already graded for the amount of traffic that the street receives? And I'm asking that because, like I said, we take a significant hit being this close to that construction, and just wondering if this new road is already properly graded for, 30,000 cars and trucks and the like, going through weighing 2 tons or more and that kind of thing. Or will we be seeing sort of more deterioration because of, the increase of traffic and the additional roads?
So the McMillan development, and any development that comes through the district, has to document their transportation impacts, and then for any impact that they have to mitigate them. So all of those questions are part of that development. So I'd refer you to the zoning order and the other documents for the McMillan project. We'll be reviewing those as inputs as part of this project, and because it's a major development that's right next to our project area. Um, but as far as all those impacts to the development, it really is on the developer to mitigate those. So that should all be in the zoning order for that.
Thank you for those questions. The next in the queue is Craig Williams.
I guess my question is about streamlining traffic. It seems that North Capitol is used, I don't know, I guess I would say primarily as a link for a lot of Northeast to 395. And, we talk about pedestrian safety a lot. And, in those sense, it's kind of slowing down traffic. But the best way to keep both pedestrians and the cars safe is to separate them as much as possible, which is why those two tunnels are so helpful for the area. But they just run into such a huge issue in between with Florida, where it comes up and it's like 6 lights and traffic becomes backed up massively, and then with all that it becomes a much harder place to walk as well. Money seems to be this big issue for doing anything, of course it always is, but are there any potential things on the table for separating pedestrians from the cars better in that section?
I mean, we wouldn't propose another grade separation at Florida. I think, I think the answer that I have is the same that we've said before, is there's a number of different uses for North Capitol Street. It functions as it's a street that people live on. It's a street that is a principal arterial in the network of the district. So balancing all those needs is going to be certainly a challenge of this project. But it's something that we're aware of, and anything that we propose as part of this project, you will consider all the modes, and we'll be having to make some trade-offs as part of this project. We're still doing the analysis. We haven't developed any of those concepts, so we're not at that point yet. But it'll be the task of the next couple of months, is taking all the inputs and coming up with concepts that kind of square all those different decision points as best we can.
And I do have a follow-up as well.
Sure.
Have you guys considered disallowing all left turns in between those two tunnels?
You know, that's something that we could certainly consider. I think that would be, another trade-off between there may be some residents who live along that part of the roadway that may, that may want to make those left turns. There might be maybe at some locations we restrict it, but not others. So, I think that's something that we could certainly, consider as part of this project.
Thank you, Craig. Next up, Chris L.
Hi, thanks. Understand that there's a lot of trade space in this project as you get community feedback with, widening sidewalks or, installing raised crosswalks, hawk signals, any of those kind of things. Is there a certain baseline of treatments that will automatically be included? So I'm thinking daylighting by default at all intersections if they don't have it, lead pedestrian intervals at all intersections if they don't have it, lighting upgrades. Is there something that's going to be done by default across the corridor without additional input from the community?
We're not at the stage where we've developed concepts. So that's going to be really the focus of the next meeting is, here are the concepts and here's what's included in them. So that's, I think that's a question that's better suited for the next meeting.
Okay, understand. I know, DDOT has a lot of engineering manuals with default treatments that are considered part of your
Sure.
standard road treatments now. And my concern is that, things like daylighting or lead pedestrian intervals, things that are well documented to work and be proven practices, in my opinion, shouldn't be open to pushback, or that it should be done by default as part of any major road project.
And anything we propose as part of this project will align with all of our DDOT manuals, the design and engineering manual, all of them.
Okay,
Anything
great.
we propose will align with those.
And just as a quick follow-up, understand maybe it's too early for this question. I know we have a number of high crash intersections on this corridor, especially around areas where the grade separation happens and then comes back up to grade. At some of these major intersections, is there any consideration, or will there be any consideration for installation of bollards to protect pedestrians waiting to cross at these intersections? I know that's a treatment that DDOT doesn't typically employ across the city, but given the number of fatal crashes along this corridor and serious crashes, is that something that would be in scope for this project?
You mean like on a median?
At corners, when you're waiting just to cross, near the sidewalk, right? Just anywhere along the corridor really is use of steel bollards to protect folks that are waiting to cross a consideration.
I think let's save that for the next meeting. I think
Okay. Understood. Thank
that's
you.
something we could, like, again, we haven't developed the concepts yet. So as far as asking details of concepts that we haven't developed yet, other than saying will certainly consider them, that's really the only answer that we have at this moment.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Next in the queue is Mark Galvin.
For coming out and describing and at least getting some of this stuff moving. I know it's a long time coming for this effort. The 2 or 3 things I want to just bring up. One is that there should be a pretty robust community engagement if DDOT has the resource to do it, because this section is pretty residential heavy. It would be great if DDOT could provide, once we get to these kind of concept phases, if flyers could be kind of put out to those, especially, in Stronghold and Bloomingdale, you know, not the entire, you know, neighborhood necessarily, but you know, a block in or a half a block in, because really people are really well invested in what happens at this corridor, both, you know, driving and walking, and all of those would be really tremendous. The other thing is, you know, my experience on the corridor, both as a cyclist and as a driver, other drivers, you know, there's that one speed camera that's there, but yeah, people drive pretty crazy. And, you know, wherever possible, we can do enforcement efforts to mitigate some of those behaviors would be really, I think, beneficial. And unfortunately, that means probably, you know, stoplight cameras and, you know, red light cameras and speed cameras. Unfortunately, I have not been able to see any major changes in behavior except at those at those spots that have those things, right? And I know MPD doesn't have a lot of capacity for that stuff. So anyway, I'm real excited to see some movement somewhere, and I'll be happy to engage you guys on the ANC front with ANC 5F and our committee on transportation and public spaces. I'm sure would be happy to have you guys, and I'm sure we'll probably take a position on the NOI, but that'll be forthcoming. So thanks so much. Appreciate all your help.
Great, thanks. And if there are any other, you know, suggestions on things that we can do to improve public outreach for this project, you know, I mean, we have things that we do for every project, and we have a plan in place, but you know, every neighborhood is different. So if there's something that you know you think would work really well or has worked in the past, please let us know, and we'd love to consider stuff like that. So you know that Commissioner Galvin, that goes for you, and really anybody on the call. So thanks.
Absolutely. Stephanie Feldman. I may have accidentally clicked the wrong button for you, Stephanie. My apologies. Let me, there we go. Let's try that again. There we go. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I echo a lot of the sentiments of my fellow community members, and just thinking out loud here with some of the issues that we're running into potentially with the budget, not being able to fund the Deckover Park, but a lot of people seeing the need for more speed cameras or red light cameras to help with the safety. As part of this plan, can part of it be to propose more of those cameras to help, and the funds could help fund the Deckover Park with the money that we'd be making from other people coming into our community?
You know, the camera revenue, I know, goes to a specific. It goes to a specific location. I'm not sure about that, but you know, I think as far as additional automated enforcement, that's something we can certainly consider as part of this project. As far as using it specifically for this project, I don't know exactly how that would work, but certainly, you know, automated enforcement and those cameras are certainly a tool that we could use as part of Constance's project. So thank you.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Ted, yeah, the revenue goes to the general fund. So it doesn't even go to DDOT. But I love the creative thinking. And I think we definitely we want a holistic view of what we can do for safety. Some of it will be from the design side, some of it will be from the enforcement side. And that's also something through the roadway safety audit, you know, that's you know, another very formal way for us to come up with really solid safety recommendations. So noted the desire for more enforcement cameras along the corridor. Appreciate that.
Okay. So just taking some quick notes. So Ryan, we are at 8:17. Like I said, this meeting goes until 8:30. So we are happy to stay as long as there are questions from the public. So if any of you have any more questions, we're happy to answer them. Ryan, if I would say if there's anybody from the public who has not provided a question and would like to, I'd like us to make sure I want to make sure everybody has the opportunity to ask at least one question. Is there anybody who hasn't asked a question yet who would like to, Ryan?
There are some who have not yet asked, but I'm not seeing any requests. Certainly, you
Okay.
can raise your hand or post a message. I will be very happy to call on you.
We are not putting anyone on the spot.
No,
so
exactly.
if you're listening and you don't want to ask a question, that's perfectly fine too. But if
Listening
you'd
is
like
perfectly
to
appropriate.
and you haven't spoken, we'd love to hear from you.
Indeed. There was a question from Chris L. about whether bus shelters will be something that's considered as part of this project.
Yeah, that's
No,
something
there's nobody in the queue right now besides that question, Ted.
Okay. That's something we certainly consider as part of this project. I know that there are probably some locations that that would qualify for a bus shelter. You know, there's metrics that we use to place those. We don't just put them anywhere. But I'm sure that there are some, or you know, that if there are some stops where if the sidewalk was wide enough, we could put a bus shelter in. That's something that we could certainly look at. I'm sure that there is. I wouldn't be surprised if there's at least one bus stop that qualifies for a shelter, but it doesn't have it because the sidewalk isn't wide enough. And that's the only reason. Wouldn't surprise me.
I would remind everybody that the mural board is available if you want to add additional comments. And Lily, a few minutes ago, posted that link. And Ted, you can show the link again right there, bit.ly/North Capitol Street. And so that is available. We have all the comments recorded automatically as part of the chat that we're here. And this meeting is also being recorded. And so we'll be able to be viewed again later, as well as we will have the opportunity to review it and make sure that we've noted and ultimately then addressed all of the comments. And lots of good ideas coming in. As Ted said, anybody who has not had the chance to speak who would like to, any other comments that were not addressed in the chat that you want to point me to?
While you're looking for that, let me just go through a couple of reminder things. So the YouTube, where is that? So yeah, youtube.com/d.videos. That's where the link will be. It'll be up later this week. Let me see. These slides will be on our website. We've got the road safety audit coming up. Again, if you would like to participate in that, please email me and we'll add you to the invite list. My contact info we'll have full frequently asked questions on our website. That's my email address. If you would like to be added to the RSA list, please let me know. That's the website for our project that all of the information that you have presented today will be on there. We also have the Title VI form that will be presented to you after we close the meeting for the WebEx. I would encourage all of you to stay and fill this out. This gives us really important data that we use to make sure that our meetings are as representative as possible. We really would, you're not required to fill it out, but we would be very happy if you would. I think we had another hand raise or another question that I saw.
Good eyes, Ted. Gene,
I get little pop-ups.
Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes,
Hi.
we can hear
Oh,
you.
great. Okay, thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you so much for hosting this public meeting. I am a resident of Bloomingdale, and I just want to echo what everybody said about safety issues. And one thing that I think also makes this area particularly vulnerable is that there is the hospital there, obviously. So I go to that hospital a lot, and there are a lot of folks in wheelchairs and on crutches coming out, and kind of old, our elders there. And so there's just a lot of traffic from those folks, which makes pedestrian safety here extremely important. And in addition to that, we go to daycare, for our infant child at the daycare that's right there in the hospital as well, and often cross onto North Cap. So I just want to point out that we have like vulnerable populations of both the elderly and young that we need to be like extra careful for in this situation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Rick, you're up.
Hey, so I just wanted to one kind of last final point. I think I saw in the chat that you all mentioned that there's no real budget allocated or funding allocated for this project. So we're right now kind of in the study phase, and then there'll be a design phase. And I'm assuming that after the design has been finalized, that's when funding will be sought for the project. Just in thinking about it through that lens, I'm wondering essentially what the end result is going to look like if we're looking for somewhat I don't want to say short term, because I used that term before, but if we're looking for quick fixes versus a much broader reimagining of the corridor that I think a lot of people are we're expecting leading up to this, and we're hoping for. So I guess I would maybe I'd ask that question. So what are you what are you projecting in terms of what you're looking to ask for with regard to a budget, knowing that you haven't really gotten to the point where you have the design put in place? But what we've heard is that the debt over is too expensive. So clearly there's an upper cap that you've anticipated. But without knowing what that is, I think it's hard for us to really imagine what the end result of this study and the changes that you're implementing, what that's going to look like.
So I think this project, we've already kind of exhausted the really quick fixes in phase one, and that's what's in the notice of intent that's currently out. So you're right, because we don't have a concept yet. We don't have a cost estimate because we don't know what we're doing, so we can't make an estimate for the cost. I think, but what we are looking at for this project is, I would say, kind of, the medium term to the shorter end of the long term for what we can do. That's kind of what we're looking for. So keeping in mind the overall conditions of the roadway as they present today, what can we do to improve safety and the multimodal improvements? So that's kind of the time frame that we're looking to develop for concepts for this. And I think it'll be, easier to grasp when we actually, have those at our next public meeting. But that's kind of what we're looking at. I think, we are the budget formulation process for the FY26 budget is, that's already out, and that's being discussed. But there's always, a next budget coming up. So I don't know how we'll handle that as far as this, but I think it's something that we would certainly consider is, when it comes time to start formulating for the FY27 budget, we would make an assessment for this project as far as, okay, what are we thinking of? We may put in an estimate of an estimate, and then we can always refine that later. It kind of depends on how we approach our budget formulation, but keeping in mind that this is this is a high crash corridor. This is a priority project. This is something that we want to, we do want to do something here to make improvements for the street. So it's kind of, we're not at the point today that we can kind of fully answer that question, but it's something that we'll certainly be considering as we continue to advance the project.
Okay, thank you.
No other questions that I see, Ted, or anybody in the queue currently.
Okay, well, then we can go ahead. If hearing there are no further questions or comments, let me flash my contact info up there. Again, that's the Title VI survey, which we'll be getting momentarily. That is the my contact information and the website. And that's all we have for you today. So thank you for the time. We look forward to continuing engaging with all of you. And thanks for joining the meeting. And we appreciate the time. So thank you.